Let's have a conversation about conservatorship. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. I've been counseling men and women who have experienced abuse as well as those who have been perpetrators of abuse and violent crimes. I wanted to do a post on conservatorship, and ironically, I was planning on doing that anyway. And someone else reached out and asked me to do a post on that. And so I think a lot of people know about conservatorships through, movies and things like that on Britney Spears and other celebrities who have been on that. But let's break down and deconstruct conservatorship. And so basically, a conservatorship is, for a person who is vulnerable. So they're mentally incapacitated and or physically incapacitated. And so they need someone to sort of manage, their finances and other personal affairs. And it's going to vary. Conservatorships are going to vary depending on states and counties that you're. It is a legal process where a judge is appointing someone to manage a person's affairs based on their disability or incapacitation. And I have quite a bit of experience in doing conservatorships in different counties in California. So I'm going to speak about my experience in California, but that it may differ from what's happening in other states like North Carolina or Illinois or something like that, and even again county by county. So some counties, when a person goes under conservatorship, so you can go under what's called temporary conservatorship, which is where you go under it for a number of days, and then it can switch over to, permanent conservatorship, which is usually, again, where you have to go in front of the judge. I think it's once a year, if my memory serves me correctly. So, but what a person is able to manage for you is going to be different. So for example, like in certain counties, a person who's in under conservatorship does not have the right of refusal. So that means that they cannot refuse medical care. They cannot say, I don't want to live in a certain place. They can't say, like, I don't want to take my medication. So that's where, like, you literally, all of your rights are really kind of given to someone else. And so, like, for example, if they refuse their psych meds, they don't have, in certain counties, you don't have the right to refuse. You could say, well, if you don't take them, the pill way, if you don't take them of your own volition, then we're going to have to inject you with those medications. And people can say, well, I don't want to live at a certain place, like a boarding care or something like that. And you say, well, you don't have that choice because your conservator, has decided that this is where you're going to live. I am in support of conservatorship. And the reason being is because, I've dealt with it from in the prison. So in prison we have the Kahia PC 2602, which is where all the rights are taken away, right? And so that means that they're closely monitored and they have to be given medication. And usually that's with a person that is severely mentally ill. They're non-compliant with their medication. The same thing, which is when I worked in psych emergency, what you typically have is you have people that don't manage their care. So you may have people that may literally sit in their house and rot all day. They won't take their medication. They become, they might become what's called a nuisance, right? So they go out into the street and they harass people. They may run in traffic and things like that. And they refuse to take their meds. So usually their interactions are going to be with psych emergency, the hospital, or with the police. So these are going to be what we call frequent flyers. These are people that are constantly going to jail for psych issues or psych and substance abuse issues, or people that are constantly coming to psych emergency, they're being 5150'd usually, which means that they're coming in on a 72-hour hold because their behavior was a danger to self, a danger to others, or they were considered gravely disabled, which means that their mental health was so debilitated that they're not able to make decisions about their own care. So they ultimately are a risk to themselves. Um, and so I don't really, I don't do too much work in psych emergency anymore, but I've done, I've worked in a few different psych emergencies, and I've worked in a few different counties, in doing 5150s. And, even in the criminal justice system, so I do recommend conservatorships to, especially now, working in a criminal justice system, which I still do. Um, there is a lot of crime. There's a lot of things that can be prevented if people take their medication. And I'm not saying that everybody who doesn't take their medication is a criminal, because that's just not true. But there's a lot of things that can be prevented, whether it be, not even just crime, but like suicide, other types of behavior. And so I don't feel like conservatorships are recommended enough. And trust and know that it's not an easy process. It's not just they come to psych emergency one time. No, I'm talking about a person that comes 20, 30 contacts, in maybe like a month. So these are people that are coming in like every day, like there's no stability out on their own. Here's where I think conservatorships, so here's where I've seen them go awry. I see conservatorships go awry when they are handled by family. So if the person that's being conserved has money and family is handling that, that's where I see it go awry. More successful conservatorships, in my opinion, are handled by the Office of the Public Guardian. So they're handled through the state. And usually, in my experience, people typically fare better when family is not involved in their finances or in those conservatorship matters, meaning that the family is not responsible for placement and things like that, because it's a lot of work to manage somebody that needs that level of management. And so a lot of times family will, even though they are appointed as the conservator, they don't want to do it. And also, too, I see abuse dynamics very heavily in family managed conservatorship. And so that's another reason why I think, like, when it's handled through the Office of the Public Guardian, and there's, the county is the overseer in terms of that. In my experience, it has gone better. I can't speak for every single county, but usually there's a much better success rate. And reason being, the county typically has to, there's things that they have to go through. There's audits and things like that. And so they have to be on top of their game when they're managing someone else's, care and things like that. Now somebody, she wrote to me and she asked me, how do you know that a person is on conservatorship when you're getting married? Again, it depends on the county. And like you're in, because some counties usually might only manage placements or manage, right of refusal for medications and things like that. So, it depends on how strict, the conservatorship is, because you may not know if you want to marry someone that's under conservatorship, but usually the family or whomever is coming in and letting a person know, or, when whoever's managing that finds out, they usually let you know if the person isn't forthcoming, because a lot of people have a lot of shame around being conserved. So they don't really say that, because people want to be free and they want to be independent to make their own decisions. So they're not necessarily, forthcoming with that. But a good conservator is going to be very involved in that person's life, and they're going to know, oh, you're seeing somebody, or you're feeling like this. Well, no, you can't do that, or let's have a, no, this kind of stuff, or let's have a conversation about the things that you want to do. So I hope that helps. Thanks so much.